My problem with Souls-like is oversaturation. I think right now, unless he gets to the point in a little bit, I think his problem with Souls-like is what people call that genre. Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Justin. You've seen the thumbnail, you've seen the title. Today's video we're going to be unpacking is called The Problem With Soulslike, and I think I'm going to have a decent amount to say on this, but let's jump into Nasu's video and I'll provide some commentary. That's cold-blooded. We're not even like, what is this, 11 seconds in, and I already know what this is in reference to. They're making fun of the journalist that had a difficult time playing Cuphead. Oof. That's rough.
FromSoftware's Dark Souls needs no introduction. Recently crowned the ultimate game of all time, the series is praised for its intricate level design, satisfying combat, and captivating world. But you're probably most familiar with Dark Souls for its notorious difficulty.
Look! Look!
Thankfully, and I think this is the case, I have compression settings turned on, so it'll never be too loud on any of my streams or YouTube videos. It's not loud for me on this end, but the moment I heard that slamming, I was like, and screaming, I was like, compression settings. Hell yeah. I'm also gonna say, like, that's all to get attention. People don't really, like, truly get that angry. There's no way.
In fact, these games are so hard that every single challenging game that came after is actually paying homage to Dark Souls, the first hard game. See, we all know that the very concept of difficulty didn't exist before Hidetaka Miyazaki invented it in 2009 with the release of Demon Souls.
Okay.
Before that, video games were all just brain dead easy. I mean, look at this. The games that they basically play themselves. But then, in comes Demon Souls.
Okay. I will also say, as I get through this video, that I think tone, and intonation in the way that this person speaks was kind of lost. 'Cause I think that was supposed to be a joke. I think the idea, of course there were difficult games before Demon Souls hit in 2009, but the idea is, you know, this is the point where everybody started proclaiming Souls. Like, I think he's going to get to his point, so I'll kind of let him go from here. Okay. I have a vibe on where this is going.
2 years later, Miyazaki shits out another hood classic, and game developers went wild. Bonfires, stamina bars, bloodstains, Estus flasks. If it was featured in Dark Souls, then it would also be featured in the next 100 games that you played. But we needed a name for these games, these copycats that were like Souls. Souls-likes. Medieval fantasy setting, Souls-like. Invincibility frame, Souls-like. Difficulty, Souls-like. Constipation, Souls-like. Wife cheated on you, Souls-like. Wait. What's that?
What was that last one?
You live in an abusive household? Souls-like parenting. Now, of course, I'm being facetious, but there really seems to be a bit of a naming crisis surrounding games that share even the slightest bit in common with Dark Souls. There's just this obsession with labeling everything that's even remotely similar as being derivative. Even among FromSoftware's other IPs, they just can't escape those same shackles. I mean, first it was just Demon Souls, and then it was the Souls games. After that, it was Soulsborne, and after that, it's Soulsborne Key.
I've never heard anybody say that. Like, I know you're reaching, but I've never heard anybody say Soulsborne Kiro. You just call it Soulsborne, dude.
You wrote this? This is a thing that you wrote?
Look, it's
nah.
undeniable that
That's
Dark
not real.
Souls is one of the most influential games of our time. The current gaming landscape would look incredibly different without it, and several games genuinely are just carbon copies. But a handful of problems arise when taking one major title and turning it into an entire genre. Take roguelike, a genre named after the 1980 dungeon crawler Rogue. Unlike Dark Souls, however, Rogue didn't spawn an entire series. series and was released over 40 years ago. So today it's not surprising when Rogue isn't the first game that comes to mind when you hear the word roguelike. That game could be faster than light, Slay the Spire, or for some people, even Hades. For me,
Sure.
the game that I think of when I hear roguelike is Binding of Isaac.
I don't know if he'll get to it, but I think of Dead Cells. I think Dead Cells might be the first one I played where, like, I think I knew what a roguelike was and I just wasn't interested. And then a friend recommended, I saw somebody playing Dead Cells, and then once I started playing it myself and started understanding the whole, you make it a certain distance in a procedurally generated level, lose, start over from the beginning and try to make it further than you did before. Yeah. So that was the first one for me.
So I've just been kindly informed that Binding of Isaac is in fact not a roguelike, but a roguelite. Initially called roguelike-likes, roguelites are roguelikes that are like Rogue, but not as like Rogue as roguelikes. When you're categorizing a game based on what it derives from, is derived from, the label starts to lose all
There it
meaning.
is.
Roguelite is a genre born from games being too different from the original title to be called roguelikes, so why even keep rogue in the name? This kind of naming convention stifles creativity by suggesting that games should stick as close to the original as possible, and for every box on the checklist that a game doesn't tick, we'll just add another like at the end of the category. All games are derivative to some extent. There's no modern game that doesn't borrow anything from its predecessors, even Dark Souls. FromSoftware didn't invent the stamina bar or parrying, and corpse running has been a staple of MMOs long before Dark Souls was even a concept swimming around in Miyazaki's nutsack. Art inspires and genres overlap. It's the same with any medium of entertainment. While there are definitely landmark films, none of them have had their titles baked into their respective genres. That's not to say that they've never been copied, but after the wave of clones came innovation. Imagine if every movie with a ton of gore and a crash zoom was called a Tarantino-like. Or look at hip-hop. I mean, half of all rappers would be called Tupac-likes. It's exactly this phenomenon of derivative content mixing and borrowing from previous media that leads to imaginative ideas. Metroidvania is a portmanteau of Metroid and Castlevania, and is used to describe games that borrow from both series. Or so the Wikipedia definition says. In actuality, it's used...
Wikipedia entry. So that's an interesting distinction, right? Because I'd be curious to know, and I'm pretty sure the answer to this is yes, and it's whether or not studios, developers, consider what they're making a Vania or like, light or like. So an example would be, if the creators of Dead Cells, like when they're making that, are they saying, oh, hey, we're going to try to make a roguelike? Or, are the people that made the game that we just saw, Ori and the Blind Forest, when they're making that, are they saying to themselves in development, we're making a Metroidvania? Or are they trying to make something else? Because I always felt like when you hear those terms are kind of plastered on by like the media, right? With regards to, an IGN or Polygon or a, whatever major games publication outlet there is. And they say, oh, there's this new Metroidvania game, or there's this new roguelike and it plays like this. And they might just do that for simplicity's sake, and I think this guy might even touch on this in his video. They might just call it that because it's easy to get people to understand that. Like me, I'm a normal, regular person when it comes to gaming, so if someone were to say, oh, hey, there's this new Metroidvania out, I might just go, well, that's not really my style of game, so I might be a little turned off to be, or apprehensive to kind of like, give it a shot. But I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful to, title a game that way, by a genre: adventure, action, mystery, horror game, and then roguelike and Metroidvania.
A sprawling world that has certain areas
open world
behind abilities, upgrades, and items, like Super Metroid. The term came into use after the release of Castlevania: Symphony of the Night, which featured a lot of these Metroid-like elements. Similarly, the game devs behind the quote-unquote Souls-like Metroidvania, Hollow Knight, had little to no experience with Dark Souls before making the game. And although they were inspired by Metroid, creating a Metroidvania wasn't something that they set out to do.
Okay.
Their inspiration came from various different games, but instead of trying to emulate anyone in particular, they focused on trying to make a good-ass game.
Okay, so this kind of answered, and I didn't necessarily read what was on screen, but I'm going to take this guy's word for it as far as like they weren't that familiar with Dark Souls, and they didn't set out to make a Metroidvania game. That was something that I wondered about, because I still think, I mean, this is going to be a studio by studio case. I don't think there's going to be like a blanket across the board thing. I believe that there are probably some, like when you think of like a battle royale game, right? Like a Valorant or Overwatch, or I guess maybe not to the same extent, but like Fortnite. When you think of those battle royale games or a MOBA, I think when developers are making a game, they probably are kind of having that in mind. Like, okay, we're going to make our own MOBA, you know, or what was going on in the gaming industry for a while. I think it was like Destiny-like games, right? So looter shooters, I guess is what they're called. So I think that there probably is an element where at some point, somewhere in the development of a game, they probably are using that term. They just maybe don't want to lock themselves into that's what they're making. Otherwise, it might prevent them from being creative in other ways in their game. That's the way I kind of see it. So I would push back on that a little bit. I don't necessarily know if I'd call it a lie, but I think that there's probably someone in the hierarchy of a gaming studio or publisher that probably is thinking of a particular genre of game when they're making something. Let's pull a little bit from the Souls-like game, because something like Hollow Knight, and I'm gonna finish this thought. So something like Hollow Knight, I think this is probably closest to a mixture between a Souls-like and a Metroidvania game. So to say something like we didn't really have that in mind and we're just looking at games, it's kind of splitting hairs, right? It's like, it's almost like I didn't know what a Metroidvania was, but I've been playing all these games my whole life.
Spoiler alert, they made a good-ass game. When developers stick firmly to a blueprint, they're designing backwards, creating a game that conforms to established game mechanics, rather than designing elements that'll best complement their game. Gris is a game that was originally intended to be a Metroidvania, but the creators wanted it to be accessible to people even if they've never played a video game, so they opted for a more linear approach. Linear is the antithesis of a Metroidvania. The devs would have to reimagine the formula in order to realize the vision they had for their game, and they did a damn good job.
So that also kind of reinforces what I was saying a bit earlier, right? Like you probably, like he just said this with Grease, like the idea being we probably did want to make a Metroidvania game because that was kind of the style of something that we thought we'd be able to make as a studio. But then we determined that we wanted it to be accessible in a different way. And we know that if it's a Metroidvania, it's going to attract a specific demographic of gamer. But if we want more people to kind of play the game, then we need to change the gameplay slightly such that anybody like me who isn't really as into Metroidvanias would want to play it. And so, yeah, I could see that. I could see that being the case.
Gris has 5 levels representing each stage of grief. You progress linearly through them, acquiring a new ability in each one. The game features no combat and little exploration. The abilities are largely used for platforming and puzzle challenges. Each level is designed around just the abilities that you have at the time, so there's no backtracking. With progression to each new level, you restore color to a beautiful watercolor painted world until you're at the last stage and finally overcome your grief. Gris borrows Metroidvania elements and uses them to tell a powerful story through little more than its gameplay. Rather than force unnecessary mechanics to fill a checklist, Gris takes only what it needs from the genre and still manages to capture the essence of having a protagonist that evolves over time and grows to interact with the world in different ways. And that is what's at the core of any genre. Just a few unchangeable factors that really capture the heart of what unifies those group of games. So, what's the soul of Dark Souls? Mark?
I'm holding on to this, and I thought I'd get this out now just so I can kind of remind myself. But I haven't yet noticed, unless he's already mentioned it, what the problem with Souls-like is. I feel like I know what my problem with Souls-like, and I guess I'll say it now. I always kind of say this stuff a little bit for the end. But my problem with Souls-like is oversaturation. I think right now, unless he gets to the point in a little bit, I think his problem with Souls-like is what people call that genre, right? Cuphead is the Souls-like of blah, 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 or this game is the Souls-like of whatever. But my problem which I wondered if we would align on this, and it doesn't seem like it's the case. My issue with Souls-like games is that they all just pretty much, there's a ton of them that all try to do exactly what FromSoftware does with a Demon Souls or a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne or a Sekiro. So there's just too many of the games all trying to do the exact same thing with almost no innovation or change in what they do at all.
Mark Brown of Game Maker's Toolkit made an excellent video in 2017 on the topic. He suggests that the genre should be made an excellent video in 2017.
Do we need a Souls-like genre? We already got one.
17 on the topic.
4 years ago?
He suggests that the genre should be based around the elements that give Dark Souls its slow, deliberate combat. But even FromSoftware's other IPs don't entirely adhere to those elements. Bloodborne has faster, more aggressive combat, and this is even more true after Sekiro's release in 2019, which got rid of the stamina bar entirely. I would argue that the element that ties these games together is not their combat, but their core gameplay loop. The cycle of encountering a challenging obstacle, dying, and throwing yourself at it again and again, armed with nothing more than your knowledge of previous attempts. No Estus Flask, stamina bar, or dodge roll necessary. That core gameplay is what makes these games so engaging and really makes you feel like you have the exaggerated swagger of a medieval fantasy protagonist. Of course, we'd also have to rename the genre and ditch the whole trend of just adding like at the end of a title. Games have already evolved past just being Souls-likes, and it's time that the language we use to refer to them does the same.
I wonder if he's going to propose something. I mean, what do you call something like that? I mean, we have some different ones already, right? Adventure, action, RPG, shooter, MMO, massively multiplayer online RPG, battle royale. I mean, there's a bunch more, right? But at least one other one that kind of comes to mind is like, what was it? Tactics, strategy. I don't know. I mean, Souls-like, I think, fits.
Hey, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you for listening to me talk my shit. This is just a topic that really grinds my gears, really rustles my jimmies, if you will. So I just figured I'd make a video about it. But yeah, tell me what you guys think. If you like the video, it helps the video get seen. If you dislike the video, then leave a comment, because that also helps it get seen. Send this to that one friend who won't shut the hell up about Dark Souls, and subscribe to see more videos like this.
So what I am going to say about this person's videos is, as I was queuing this one up for today, I did notice, actually it's kind of right here if I scroll down, there's another one from him, so it looks like he came back. Because the description of his video says so it says here, been on a recent FromSoftware binge and playing through these different games, and then it says here, he's hyped for Elden Ring. So 2 months ago, Elden Ring's out, so I probably will do a video on what this, I mean, it says, I don't know if it's a clickbait thing, it might be, but it says ruined, how Elden Ring ruined Dark Souls multi-boss fight. So I'm going to do a video on that. Stay tuned to the channel for that. I don't necessarily know with this person's video if he ever mentioned what his problem was. I know, and not that this is an issue with this video, but what I gathered from it is it seemed like the problem with Souls-like were two things. One, the name, right? Because it doesn't necessarily correlate to what the gameplay is. It's just almost like copycat. And then so it seemed mostly like it was the name. Like he said that he kind of went over that a lot. Like it's just more or less the idea of this game's a Souls-like and this game's a Souls-like and this is the Souls-like of blah blah blah, And he's right. I know that he mentioned the other video that was out there for a bit, but I did see a lot of that. I mean, the one that sticks out the most is at the very beginning of this video, which is Cuphead. People were saying this is like, they didn't call it a Souls-like. I forget what they called it when it came to Cuphead. But it was like, it was so difficult, people related it to Dark Souls. And there really isn't any similarity between Cuphead and Dark Souls. It was just, Dark Souls was synonymous with being a difficult game. So if something was overly difficult, oftentimes without like an easy mode or a difficulty setting, people just kind of referred to it as, dang, this is like Dark Souls. It's so hard. So I don't know, maybe I missed it, but it seemed like this guy's issue with the problem with Souls-like is the fact that because it's called that, it allows anything to be the Souls-like of whatever. My issue, just to reiterate around what I have an issue with like Souls-like games, and this is a different subject than what he talked about, which is that there's just too many of them. We got to give it, to FromSoftware. They make those games clean, and everyone else trying to do it, I don't think I've seen anything come remotely close to as well as FromSoftware does it. So But yeah, I still thought it was a good video. I thought this was going to be something a little bit different than it was, but it was still good. I am going to watch a few more of this guy's videos. Stay tuned to the channel. Check out my other content. I'm going to be making videos on Nasu's Elden Ring video, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.